YouTubers, Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel, broadcasting from Brampton, Ontario. Local time is midnight. Today is the 15th of June. It's 12 o'clock on the dot, 11:59 p.m. midnight. Today's June 15, 28. What's happening? We'll do a little shakedown on what's happening in the Australian housing market and the emails I've been receiving from people with the huge, sharp increase of homelessness in Australia. I got a buddy that messaged me that his rent was raised X amount of dollars per week because in Australia they pay their rent weekly. So he basically had rent increase, so he left. So he's been watching it online for rent, and now the price has been going down cheaper than what he was renting it for before. So Australia is looking like a lot of people are going to be getting served letters. A lot of tenants are going to be getting served letters for condo owners, basically, that haven't been paying their mortgage, and the money needs to go directly now to the bank. And that's been happening in a couple of cases in Canada. So, anyways, let's look at what's happening here. So, Australia has been in turmoil, and it's been really bad because of this. Price of housing, the whole nine yards, and the fraudulent loans, and the crappy lending practices, and putting junk on the books. All that crap adds up, right? But it's the homelessness that's out of control in Australia right now, like severely under control. The Australian proper is basically losing a financial economic takeover war. It starts off with shutting down, destabilizing all the mining and stuff in Perth. I don't know if you guys follow what's happened there. And started slowly destabilizing good paying jobs, obliterating unions. And then after the housing market starts getting taken over, cost of living gets too expensive. And a lot of the people, especially the seniors that have worked all their lives and contributed to the Australian infrastructure, are struggling right now just to find a place to sleep. And what hurts me, like destroys me, is a lot of kids being put in foster care or taken away from their families because they can't find suitable housing. And both mom and dad are working two jobs each, and they still can't find housing. And that's becoming a massive problem in New Zealand and everywhere. New Zealand is finding this problem. England's finding this problem. It's becoming an absolute disaster. So this here is the response to Australia's housing and homelessness. So, responses. From sky-high house prices to rental stress and rising homelessness, Australian housing affordability problem is not going away. With 194,600 people currently on social housing waiting lists in Australia, and an estimated 1 in 200 people homeless on any given night. The question of how to solve this growing crisis is a bit that demands national attention. In May, the Australian Housing and Urban Research Institute released a report detailing how social impact investment could help improve housing and homelessness in Australia. We have a situation where homelessness has increased 14% between 2011 and 2016. That's a huge gap. Median mortgage and rent has increased over the last decade, far beyond median household income, and over 1 million households in the housing stress. Inquiry led to the UNSW Center for Social Impact CEO Christine Marr said. Now, a lot of these people aren't having kids anymore, like they used to, but the Australian proper isn't having kids because it's too expensive. So the population is still going up, but the homelessness is going up. And who's going homeless? A majority of the entire increases. I could bet my left nutsack that it's the Australian proper that is homeless in this situation right now. Because if they're not having kids as much as they used to, like 30 years ago, then you got to do the math, right? It's got to be somewhere, right? Unless there's a lot of I guess foreign investors going homeless. I can't see that on the streets of Australia. Okay, next headline. Australia's 20 hottest suburbs for housing. I'm going to leave this one with you guys because I'm not going to read this whole thing. But this one actually is a really good article if you take your time to read it. And it actually shows right here all the little suburbs in Australia that populations are going up. And they're all outside of the major cities, of course, because a majority of the Australian proper has left a lot of the major cities. Sydney for sure. A majority of the Australian proper have left Sydney. And when I say, guys, Australian proper, you got to understand the way I mean by it. I didn't invent these terms, right? To me, this is what it means. Australian proper, Canadian proper, UK proper are anyone that lives in the country, basically. Anybody that lives in the country. It doesn't matter what race, religion, creed, color. It doesn't matter. It's that they actually invest in the country where they pay taxes. They contribute to the infrastructure. They send their kids to school. They do they help out. They're there to invest in the country permanently. They're permanent. Their lives are invested in the country, and that's what I mean by Australian proper. Someone that lives and dies by Australia. Someone that lives and dies by the way of life. Someone that lives and dies by the culture. You know what I'm saying? So let's move this along here. Really good article here. I strongly recommend if you're in Australia, large infrastructure projects in the area fueling employment growth and population is forecast to grow by more than 224,000 people over the next 10 years. So these are all different cities they're breaking down here and showing you the different hotspots in Australia and giving you a breakdown of who, what, when, and why. And it's really good. It tells you the province, what state it's in. It tells you everything you need to know, and it's a really good article. I read through it, and I think this is a very good, well put together. Who wrote this damn thing? The New Daily. Yeah, The New Daily. Who wrote this thing? Let's give him some. Where is he? Where's his name? I don't see it here. Hold on. Isabel Lane. Isabel Lane wrote this article. It's really good. I strongly recommend, especially if you're looking to get out of the big cities in Australia, I strongly recommend that you look at these 20 hottest suburbs for housing. Let's move on. Another headline. Melbourne dominates Australia's housing hotspots list. So a lot of people a year ago would never believe this, but it's happening. Okay? It's happening. So it's the... Okay, people are commenting in the comment section. Walking Journeys there. Steve just messaged me. Steve, my buddy Steve. And hope he's okay. And I'll be in town till Monday morning, so... Anyways, let's move on here. Melbourne dominates Australia's housing hotspot list. So according to the HIA Population Residential Building Hotspots Report 2018, the Mechalem York area of Melbourne is Australia's #1 hotspot, with population growth of 35.3% during 2016-2017, at 229.9 million in building approvals. Holy smokes. Wow. A number of Sydney's western and southwestern suburbs are also on the move, from Lebanon to Parramatta and Blacktown. The large pipeline of the new housing will attract significant population growth. So my buddy said, Steve, he says he's doing all right, and he said he might come and meet me tomorrow. I'm meeting with Lost Canuck too. So if you wanna, I'll keep you in the loop. You keep me in the loop. Let me know what's going on. In Queensland, southeastern corner, the focus of activity, population growth in the southeast accelerated over the past year, indicating Queensland is starting to see solid employment gains. Camara is also a regular on the hotspot list, joined by South Brisbane, where the apartment boom resulted in significant approvals and population growth. So the Australian propers left these major cities because there's a huge mass exodus of Sydney and parts of Melbourne, like just parts of Australia where it's just out of reach for most people. A lot of people are taking a cut and pay, moving to a small town and living happy, right? Hopefully, here's an article here. This is like okay. Chinese investors are inflating housing markets in the USA, Canada, and Australia. What? Did you just find this out? This is like from like an article from a few days ago. It's like I don't understand here. This is from Business Insider too, so it's a reputable source. So it's like, yeah, you know what? Um, it's like they just discovered a diamond in the rough. Like, look what we found. So let's find this out. Let's figure this out here. Um, Chinese investors will put 1.5 trillion into assets abroad over the next decade. Yeah, they will, for sure. For sure. With the Canada birth tourism, Canada's got a birth tourism going on now, and they have a lot of homes with a lot of pregnant Chinese women that are ready to give birth. And the second they get the child's born, they get citizenship, they get everything like on the spot, right? That's another article I'll read for you guys another time. I'll actually want to do a talk about this about birth tourism. I think it's gonna warp our I think it's gonna. I don't know how Canada will look on the rest of the how the rest of the globe will see Canada when it comes to something this big, because this is a really big deal. People having children for the wrong reasons, and yeah, I'm not gonna go there right now. Okay, so about half of that will likely go to foreign property, often in the U.S., Canada, and Australia. Home prices have soared under foreign buying pressure, and politicians are finally admitting it. Whoa! What? What did you think? We're gonna find out? I mean, you could see the demographic of people changing in front of your eyes. You know what I'm saying? It's not like it's this big secret. Like, I mean, did they think we're all idiots that we were not going to see the change in people? Hey, wait a minute. Why aren't these signs in English anymore? Okay, what's going on here? And then, so that's what's happening there. Says the water effect of money flows. Top residential real estate brokers in the U.S. have been promoting U.S. homes to investors in China for years. Brokerage firms in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and other countries have done the same. Commissions are at stake. They have to set up units in China and are partnering up with Chinese real estate portals such as Jowie.com. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, a subsidiary of Home Services, the second largest residential brokerage in the United States, entered the fray beltedly a year ago with marketing agreement with Joey.com to syndicate the franchise residential listings, and not just the trophy cities on the coast, but all Berkshire's listings anywhere. So that's what happens. So this is what it looks like when you go there and you click on a country you want to invest in. And then scrolling down the page, any listings reveals 4 red buttons that lead to the crutch of these deals for Chinese investors. So translation below. So how to buy a house. So it gives you guides and stuff. And these brokerage firms in the US and Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and other countries are doing expos to conference China to lure investors to make the leap in the massive marketing effort in by China. These firms worked like a charm. So, guys, do you remember I was telling you they were making brochures in Mandarin and in simplified Chinese and stuff, and they were going to market Seattle? Well, look where Seattle is today. Look at where Seattle is today. They went to brokerage. They went there basically. So let me tell you how it started. Vancouver, Canada, put on this foreign buyers tax. A bunch of investors kind of fleed or investors ready to invest, fleed south to Seattle, and then about 30% went east to Toronto. So they said, okay, Toronto and Seattle, both cities did nothing until Toronto put in all these capital flows and all this crap and mortgage stress tests and stuff. But in Seattle, a lot of the I know a couple of real estate agents that actually went south, put their ties on. Let's get in more people here, and that's what happened. They went south, and the ones that went south are whistling Dixie because homes in Seattle now are going up like 20 grand a quarter. Look it up. It's on file. If I'm making this up, then I'm the biggest liar on earth because I've been following Seattle, Portland, Oregon, and California. Now I'm following Nevada. Man, I'm following Alabama now with the amount of people leaving California, moving to Alabama. So let's not get off topic. So the amount of people that left Sydney and Melbourne and stuff, or sorry, Sydney and all the other major cities in Australia are now these small towns in Australia are seeing. So this is a very long article. Very long article. This is what the article looks like if you want to read it yourself. Very long article. It is Chinese investors inflating housing markets in the U.S., Canada, Australia. Key line. Home prices have soared under foreign buying pressure, and politicians are finally admitting it. Why? Because the politicians are lining their pockets with your children's future. Your children's future is being sold out to the highest bidder. And that's what's happening, people. So let's move on to the next article here. Australian house auction clearance rates are no longer cooling. They're cold! So, look at this. Is that Ned Stark? Ned Stark, I think? I can't remember. I don't know who that is. Ned Stark. I think I saw a season of this show. Winter has arrived. And it has arrived, guys, in Australia. Auction clearance rates fell to a fresh 5-year lows last week. Less than 60% of properties cleared in Sydney and Melbourne. Prices in these cities have been falling for several months. Many forecasters expect the downturn will continue for quite some time yet. There's no shortage of forecasters out there predicting the recent declines in Sydney and Melbourne property prices will continue for some time yet. Some believe it could last for years rather than months before prices lift again. Okay, if you're looking for prices to lift again, the only way they can make prices lift again is if they start bringing in huge mass amount of rich immigrants. There's no other way it would work, guys. The only way they could get this to work is to take up whatever green space they have left in Sydney, Melbourne, whatever green space is left, build it up and bring in more for the next 10 years. Bring in more wealthy investors for the next 10 years. That's the only way they can make this go back up. That's the only way. Completely selling out the Australian proper to zero. Basically, the Australian proper will be kind of removed from the equation of buying a home and selling or whatever buying or getting into rentals and stuff for about anywhere from 30 to 50 years, because that's how much damaging this will be. Because this is going to affect every Australian in its country, whether you rent. Oh, I'm renting. I don't care. It's going to affect you if you rent. It's going to affect you if you're looking to buy. It's going to affect you if you're going to look to sell. It's going to affect you for everything. It doesn't matter whether you rent or not. It's going to affect you. So when it comes to the usual disclaimer that last weekend was a public holiday in many parts. Yeah, well, it was a holiday, guys. That's, the sales are down. I mean, it dropped a bit. It was a holiday, and, we didn't sell that much, and prices are tickering down and bottom's falling out, but it was a holiday. They always find a way to try and blame, trying to blame. Okay, global indicator that correctly picks 4 out of 5 financial crises says Australia is okay for now. So Australia, is it on a lifeline right now? Is your country on a lifeline? Is Canada on a lifeline? Is the U.S. on a lifeline when it comes to their housing financial correctness? Are they off lifelines? That's my question there. The downturn in Australia's housing market has been one of the central economic themes of 2018. But research from Capital Economics shows that for a given point in the market cycle, a moderation in the house prices can help assist economic ability. The findings are outlined by the CE's chief economist, Paul Dales, in a research report on whether Australia faces a looming financial crisis. I believe that Australia's dollar is going to go down 30 25 to 30 points. Other people are forecasting 40% down drop in their currency. It would make exports more attractive, but Australia isn't exporting what they were in the 80s. So unless Australia starts making mountain bikes and electric cars and starts actually making things with their minerals that they have in their ground instead of exporting their minerals at a loss and then buying back the product that at profit. So something's got to be fixed. There's got to be some sort of economic cycle. Let's move on. Lending to Australian housing investors continues to fall. Sorry, guys, I'm reading comments here on my phone as they're going. Nat saying, Mike, interesting time in Australia. Absolutely private debt too still growing, but declining rate. At the house prices going backwards, particularly at top. Oh, sorry. At top of the end of the market. And then someone else is commenting here. Things are resetting in the U.S. dollar. I am making money shorting Argentina. And then I'm late to the party. Can you please post URL articles you've been talking about? Thanks. And then easy money has dried up. And US dollar equals fiat currency. We all know that. That's until, Kennedy was working. Andrew Jackson, Old Hickory. Look him up. Old Hickory, on his deathbed, when Andrew Jackson, the man on the $20 bill, a lot of people don't know this, when Old Hickory was on his deathbed, he said, I've saved my people. He loved, Andrew Jackson loved his people so much, he needed to get the foreign entities out. On his deathbed, he said, of all presidents, I've accomplished the greatest feat of all. I've removed the Federal Reserve or the Federal Bank or foreign banks. And he spent his entire political career shutting down the banking institutions until that idiot was in World War II, Woodrow Wilson, signed in some crap that basically stole every American's dream. And Old Hickory on the $20 bill. If I'm going to have a leader of leaders or a leader of leaders to look up to, I have all my a lot of the explorers, the Portuguese explorers like Vasco da Gama, Prince Henry, all those guys. I look up to those guys. But if I had to look up to an American, it would have to be Andrew Jackson. He spent his entire political career shutting down the banking system, and he did well at it. John Fitzgerald Kennedy tried doing it too. And unfortunately, he was assassinated in 1963, November 22nd, in Dallas, Texas. Unfortunately, he was putting in silver-backed currency. He was working on shutting the Federal Reserve, and he tried. But anyways, lending to Australian housing investors continues to fall. You see, they don't talk about housing families lending to housing families or families looking to lay roots or families. No, housing investors. It's like a business now. It's a commodity. It's not an asset anymore. Australian home loan lending continued to weaken in April, driven lower by another drop in the value of investor loans. So secondary markets are taking a hit too. So the value of housing finance fell 0.2. That is, so when people 0.2, Mike, what are you talking about? That's 31.74 billion, leaving a decline on a year earlier 3.2 points. Over the year, the value of loans to owner occupiers rose 4.2%, partially offsetting a 15% decline in the value of loans issued to investors. So Australian home loan lending continued to weaken in April, driven lower by another decline in the value of investor loans. So there you go, guys. This graph is pretty good, actually. This is in billions. And then it goes way back to 2013. And he shows you all the different quarters. And it's this part right here. The share of borrowing by investors continued to fall, and at 42% is the lowest since 2012. said Daniel Gorwell, senior economist at ANZ Bank. So this is a really good article if you guys want to. And there's a video here with this guy. He's wearing a tie. Oh, he's not wearing a tie. We could trust this guy. Dropbox CEO talks about rejecting Steve. Okay, this is something else. So we're not going to watch this. But he's not wearing a tie. You could trust this guy. Okay, let's move on. The urban developer. Adelaide overtakes Hobart as Australia's cheapest housing market. I knew that Adelaide was in and around, but Hobart's median house price increased 492,000, marking the first time in 12 years the city isn't bottom place among the nation's capitals. Across Australia, an overall decline was seen in the median house price of 0.1%, 770 large for houses, 0.2% for apartments, 593 large, according to the latest research from Real Estate Institute of Australia, proving Tasmania's housing market has well and truly bounced back after the real estate. Why did Tasmania? I read this article about Tasmania. Why Tasmania? A lot of Australian middle class moved to Tasmania. Remember that article I read for you guys? All these young families moving to Tasmania? Because that's why. Why do you think Tasmania bounced back? Significant 20% rise from the previous. Why? Why? Because of the middle class. The middle class is what truly drives a true economy. The people that invest in the infrastructure and pay taxes. The Tassie capital's growth has moved it ahead of Adelaide, which now means the nation lowest for most affordable medium house price is 470 large. This is the first time since September 2006 that Hobart hasn't had the lowest house median price of capital cities, President Malcolm Gunn said. Adelaide now is the lowest medium house price, some 39% lower than the national average. So there you go, guys. So some numbers here you guys could look up right here. Despite the falls of the quarter, the weighted average capital city medium house price across the 12 months increased by 2.2% after rises of capital cities except Perth and Darwin. Okay, let's move on here. Comments are going strong, guys. Unfortunately, they go really fast when I'm just streaming off my phone. So I don't know how Walking Journey does it when he's driving. If you watch the Walking Journey channel, he's driving and reading the comments at the same time. I don't know how he gets. He's probably using some other software. Australia central bank governor sees no need to worry about house price slowdown. These are the don't panic Cardanic. These are like don't panic. There's nothing to see here. Move along. You know when the police are ushering you along and then there's blood all over the walls and all over the floor and all over the glass and you're walking on the sidewalk and they're like, oh, there's nothing to see here. Move along. Well, these are one of these articles. Melbourne Sydney Routers, Australia's central bank governor, said on Wednesday the current slowdown in the housing market isn't cause for concern, but flagged the need for policy to remain at record lows for the foreseeable future with wage growth and inflation still weak. No, they raised their minimum wage recently. It's still out of reach for most, so inflation is there, but home prices. Oh, Scotty Bowman's on there in the comments too. Home prices across Australia's major cities have fallen for successive months since last year as tighter lending standards and banks cooled demand by Sydney and Melbourne, the two biggest markets. Housing credit growth has hit its slowest pace in 6 years. Building approvals have come off peak, and home prices posted their first annual drop since 2013 last month. But you know what, guys? There's nothing to see here. Why are they even writing this article for? There's no. Let's see what they say here. This increase is likely to only be gradual, he added. Given this, there is no strong case for near-term adjustment in monetary policy. Lowe was still confident that the gradual pickup in wage increases from the current 2% as more jobs are added, with some companies citing constraints in finding suitable workers. Yep. A lot of big cities are having a hard time finding qualified workers. You remember what the article I read that was happening? Sorry, guys, my stream went down, so I don't know where I was, where I left off, where I was talking to myself here for a while. Property developer, former BNZ employee, and suspended lawyer found guilty in partaking in 54. Oops. Cha-cha. Sorry, guys. You see my ugly face there for a second. Suspended lawyer found guilty in $54 million mortgage fraud scheme involving 110 Auckland and Hamilton properties. This is really bad. This is really bad, guys. I'm not going to mention names in this because I'm going to get a lawsuit in the mail. So some idiot breaks the law. I talk about it and they want to sue me because he broke the law. It's like stupidity. Anyways. Okay. Aussie mortgage fraud triggers $80 billion class action. Lawyers representing 300,000 litigations are planning an $80 billion action against mortgage lender, mortgage brokers, finance regulators, and class action that would dwarf previous actions. This is huge, and you find it on the back page of your local newspaper. Huge! You have no idea how big of a problem this is in Australia. People have no idea what's happening. Roger Brown, former Lloyd's of London insurance broker, said he already has about 200,000 borrowers ready to join the action, as 75 million backing from UK and European investors. There's been a scam, he said, about mortgage lending Australian property buyers, but the train has hit the buffers and there needs to be some recompensation, he said. So this is a big deal, guys. This is a huge deal. You can find it on the last page of your, it's by Macro Business. These guys are pretty good. They're pretty, how do you say, they're pretty point blank about what's happening. They actually just go to base and they say how it is. They cowboy it. They just like, here it is, man. Woo! They just cowboy everything and they say what it is. Macro Business. It's a kind of like Better Dwelling, if you know what I'm talking about. Let's move on. Leading economist warns of mini domestic financial crisis as bank values plummet. Woo! So I'm predicting a 30% decline in Australia's currency market, like in Australia, sorry, in their dollar. Okay, not their currency market, but in their dollar. Impending doom. Watch out. Independent economic research, House Capital Economics, is now saying there's a credible risk of an economic scenario no one wants to see, an Australian financial crisis. The backdrop of the kind of scenario is already in place. Take the stock market, for example. It's easy to get lost in day-to-day movements from the stock market. Stand back a bit, though, and you can see that the market values in Australia's major banks have plummeted between 35 and 45% since their highs of 2015. This is one of those situations where I can't keep it quiet about it, and the Capital Economics Chief Economic Paul Dale. I need to warn clients. In 2016, the Australian Financial Review judge Mr. Dales of Australia's Economist of the Year, saying that he made all the right calls in the right market at the first time. So this guy's pretty good. So what are they forecasting here? Hold on, let me just see here. Will financial crisis hit Australia? Critics reject Dale's concerns. Household debt. Yep, household debt's one of the major ones. Because everybody is basically borrowing against their equity in their homes and buying their new SUVs, parking them on their driveways, and have no idea in their back of their minds how the hell they're going to pay that, and they sleep like sheep. What are they forecasting here? Let me see if I can get it in here real quick. Yeah, it's going to be, he describes this mini financial crisis as being contained within Australia, but capable of producing a pretty dire scenario. This would be due to the vicious and circle developing of the economy, where something triggers following house prices weaken the economy. Do you guys remember what crashed the in the Roaring '30s down in the United States of America? What crashed their stock market? A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people say, "Oh, stocks were overinflated. Everyone was investing in the stock market, overinflated the prices of stock." The housing situation actually played a huge part in the stock market crash. A lot of people don't know that. You can look it up, it's on file. The housing market actually was one of the major underlying factors during the big crash of the great 30s. Black Thursday or Black Friday or whatever that was. It was one of the major contributors. A lot of people lost their homes and defaulted on their mortgages um, before the crash. A lot of people were started turning in their keys to the turning in their keys. You know what I'm saying? So, household debt is causing a lot of this. What is going to happen, guys, in Australia? It's very important because this is affecting every English-speaking country in the world. Okay, house prices set to tumble after buyer. House prices have been soaring much of the country for years, but single decision could suddenly cripple the market. Well, this guy is reading a paper. They say that it rains, but it pours. After many years of sunny positive on the Australian housing prices, bad news. What happened to it? Where did that go? It's opening all these stupid ads. Bad news, it's coming down in a flash flood. Not just tighter lending following the Financial Services Royal Commission, all your big buyers are under the pump. Locals are seeing the worst wage growth in history. Plus, the lift in unemployment and consumers' confidence has just taken a big dive. And the foreign side of the market suddenly looks sick too. Foreigners are fleeing. Foreign approvals to buy Australian residential property has dropped by 2/3 last financial year, removing loads of potential cash from the market. Foreign buyers, the kind of people popping up the prices in the new apartment developments, seem to have vanished. As this graph shows, approvals for foreign to buy an Australia property dropped 40,000 to 13,000 in 2016-2017. That takes billions of dollars out of the market and reversed the 3 years of surging foreign enthusiasm for Aussie homes. So there it is, people. Here it is. Black and white. You can't argue numbers. Math is math. 2 plus 2 is 4. They're trying to tell you that 2 plus 2 is 9, but it's not. So here are the list of reasons why investors are abandoning the scene. Banks are tightening up on lending to foreigners. It's now harder to get money out of China. That's very true. That's one of the major reasons. This is like the major reason right there. Taxes on foreign property buyers were introduced in some states, and the simple fact is that our market looks less attractive now. So that's what's happening with that. So weak, limp, soft economy in the housing market in Australia. And banks are also non-performing with housing loans, like we read in the last thing. And a lot of people are falling in the rears. And I hate seeing this. It's a lot of people need credit counseling, not more credit. And this, Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. Why the Australian dollar might crash to 40 cents or below. I'm actually forecasting 30 cents, but this is 40. Holy crap. This is from May 22nd. This is a bit of an older article, but this is very important. We are short Aussie dollar. We are long Australian interest rates, and we also long protection on the Australian banks. And AIM's Fixed Income Fund told the Australian Financial Review the Royal Commission has shone a light on lending practices could potentially tighten credit conditions when profitability is somewhat challenging and high U.S. interest rates are having a spillover impact. You can short the Aussie dollar in the U.S. dollar and be paid for doing so. It is the first time in my career that this has happened. So these guys are forecasting here 40 points, 40 cents. I was forecasting 30 cents, but that's holy smokeroos. That's 30 cents is kind of a make and break reset, but 40 points or below is huge. So here you go. Here's the tactical asset allocation portfolios. So there's the growth, the foundation, and accumulation and income. Here you have it here. And then direct share portfolios. So these are like mutual funds that they have there. I don't know, guys. I'm just putting this out there. I know Australia's been battling. It's like a war. It's like a war. This is like a financial. It's an invisible war, but it's happening. It's like a financial economic takeover. Now, what's happening in Australia is like it. Like for example, it lost the war on homelessness. Now homelessness is spiking, and they're trying to catch up, and everyone's looking to the government for help and private charitable institutions to help. And then you lost the war on homelessness, so it's out of control. Then you lost a war on housing. It's out of reach. Majority of Australians can never own a home. A lot of people are fleeing to smaller cities. They lost the war on lending practices and lending. Like it's the most disgusting thing. It's like you wear a tie for what? You know, the reason why I don't wear a tie is because I'm not a high representative person. Like, because in Portuguese, it's like in my culture, it's like when you wear a tie, you gotta, you don't. You got to be there to. That's why I never wear a tie. That's why you only see me wear a tie once in a blue moon. And yeah, it's that they lost the war on everything. They lost the war on Australia. Lost the war on rental, the whole rental market. They lost the war on this uh, uh, um, interest rates. It's like they're losing the war on every front when it comes to the whole economics and finances of the country, from housing to lending to car loans and everything. It's gotten to a point right now where Australia is completely defeated, and I think Australia. I think all the stuff that's happening. I think what they need to do is cease fire and come to an agreement with how do we really fix this problem. Really, cease fire. We've lost. Australia needs to admit defeat to this entire disaster that's going on, and someone needs to press the reset button because it's so way out of line right now. Things are just so uncoordinated right now. Everyone's pointing and looking at the government. The government should have put better regulations on the lending sector. The lending sector should have been smart enough. Their underwriters shouldn't approve garbage deals. I don't know why they approve so many garbage deals. I made a video about that. So it all boils down. And then who pays for it? The working poor. Once you trickle down the top of the mountain, from the top to the bottom, to the middle, low class citizen, middle class, working poor citizen, it's them that pays. Anyways, guys, I want to know what you guys think. I want to see your comments below. I'm also looking for some boots in the ground in Australia. If you guys if anybody doesn't want to be shown, if they want to make a video and send it through Yahoo or like what is it, some Google Hangouts. If you want to send me a video and then maybe write an email to me, what I'm looking at or discussing what it is you want to tell me in the video, I'll be more than happy to put up the video and then I could discuss it. Bring it to me. I'll do it. It's not a problem because a lot of people are scared. People are making fake accounts to actually comment on my videos or comment on my chat, my live chat, because they just like if their jobs, like somebody told me that like they almost got fired for subscribing and watching my channel. I'm like, really? There's somebody in New Zealand actually. It's like, yeah. It's like people know who you are, Mike. It's just, we have to be careful. That's why I have almost 2 million views on my channel and like no subscribers. It's because people don't want to subscribe because a lot of people are afraid what their employer might think. Talking to some guy that can't read what I'm saying, or watching some guy that can barely read. Anyways, I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. It's almost an hour now. I'm going to go to bed. Portugal playing Spain tomorrow, so wish me luck. Hopefully Portugal wins. And yeah, I look forward to see your comments below. Thanks for watching, guys.